Have you ever met someone who seemed too kind, too perfect, only to find out later they shouldn't even exist? Let me tell you about the night I should have never survived. It was around midnight when I decided to go for a walk. The air was cool, the streets empty, and I just needed to clear my head. There's something peaceful about late-night walks. Until they aren't. I took my usual route past the old park and down the dimly lit main road. But as I turned onto Willow Lane, a street notorious for being too dark and too quiet, I felt it. That gut-wrenching feeling that I wasn't alone. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. It was just the shadows playing tricks on me, the sound of my own footsteps echoing too loudly. But then, I heard it. A second set of footsteps. I quickened my pace. So did they. I stopped. So did they. My heart was pounding and my instincts screamed at me to run. But before I could, a voice came from behind me. "Hey, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I turned around, and there he was. A man in his 40s wearing a leather jacket and a kind smile. "It's not safe out here at this hour," he said, his tone warm but firm. "Let me walk you home." Normally, I wouldn't trust a stranger, but something about him felt safe. He introduced himself as Thomas and kept a polite distance as we walked. We talked about everything, books, life, even the old stories about Willow Lane. He told me he used to live nearby, but he hadn't been back in years. By the time we reached my apartment, I felt like I'd made a friend. He waved goodbye, and I watched him walk back down the street until he disappeared into the darkness. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about him. I wanted to thank him properly, so I mentioned him to my neighbor, Mrs. Carter. Her face went pale. "Thomas?" she said, her voice trembling. "You're sure that was his name?" "Yes," I replied. "Thomas. Leather jacket. Mid-40s. Why?" She stared at me, her hands shaking. "Thomas died 10 years ago, right on Willow Lane. He was mugged and killed while trying to help someone." I laughed nervously, thinking she was joking. But she wasn't. She showed me an old newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Local hero killed while protecting stranger." The picture was unmistakable. It was him. I didn't know what to think. Had I imagined it? Was it some kind of strange coincidence? But then I noticed something that sent chills down my spine. On my kitchen counter was a folded piece of paper. I hadn't put it there. Inside, written in neat handwriting, was a simple note. "Stay safe, Thomas." To this day, I don't know what really happened that night. But every time I walk past Willow Lane, I feel a presence watching over me, and sometimes I hear footsteps that aren't my own. Have you ever experienced something that defies logic? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales that make you question what's real.